Welcome to the Lock-In Podcast. This is episode 27 for Wednesday, 14th of October 2020. My name's Colin Weenichan, I work for Black Knight, and I'm recording this short little introduction just by way of explanation, because this is an episode which is slightly out of sequence. I recorded it originally about 3 weeks ago, and then I was out for a while, and it missed its publishing slot. It's still mostly valid, however. It's an interview with Conor O'Neill, who's Chief Product Officer with a company called Nearform, based in County Waterford. They're the company who have developed the COVID tracking app, which has been used here in Ireland. And it's also an open sourced project which is leading to apps being developed and deployed by health authorities in other parts of the world as well. American states coming online with it now. Conor mentions too, I think since this interview was recorded, New York and New Jersey have been added to the list. That's it. Have a listen, enjoy the show, and remember you can find out more at thelockin.ie. This is the show about how we live now. It's about the COVID crisis. It's about coronavirus. It's about dusting ourselves off and getting on with it as best we can, in as far as we can at the very least. And one of the points we've made since we started this is that technology can help. Online shopping can help, click and collect, things like that. And one of the things which is one of the tools in our arsenal at the moment is the HSE's COVID tracker app. I want to welcome Conor O'Neill to the show. Conor works for Nearform. What's your title there, Conor?
Oh, officially I'm Chief Product Officer, yeah, just a product guy, you can call me.
Excellent. So the COVID tracker, I should say, is your product. You guys developed it for the HSE, and using the Apple and Google API functionality for exposure notifications, which they made available as well. That were you guys one of the first to launch an app using that?
We were one of the first to get started on it, but like a lot of people, we took the kind of earlier approaches with the HSE. So we weren't the very first to launch, but we were one of the first, yeah, for sure.
Well, can I say on behalf of a person that's using it, it's on my phone. Thanks for the app. It's nice to know. I know it's not the silver bullet that protects us entirely and 100% from COVID. And it's not designed, or it couldn't possibly be that. But it is one of the tools, as I said, that is supposed to help protect us, along with washing our hands, social distancing, and general cop on and common sense as well. But it's crossed my mind, Conor. I'm relieved and I'm reassured to know it's there on my phone, but I haven't got any exposure notifications. I haven't been told that I've been exposed, and I've just been wondering, there isn't a great big go to end inside in the middle of that code or anything like that, is there? It does actually do something, does it?
Yeah, it's actually an interesting one. I've just even personally thought about this a lot. So, the HSE worked with our professional services team, and Colin Hart and the guys just did an incredible job kind of building the app for them and iterating with them. I think recently on a call with Gar in the HSE, he was saying effectively we built 3 apps in 12 weeks as the thing progressed and as things changed and Google Apple came along. But each country and each jurisdiction is doing slightly different things, but all with the same intent, which is to kind of do exposure notifications. And really that fundamental functionality should just be in the background, and it shouldn't be something you have to be worried about, be concerned about. I know some people, for example, think that if they're not checking in on the Irish app that it's not working, but that's a separate piece of functionality. That's really for you, so you can actually see your kind of your history of how you were feeling over time. Whereas if you look, let's say, at the app in Gibraltar, which we also did, that has nothing. Like that literally is just doing exposure notifications. So you install it, you launch it, and you're done. You may never install the thing again. But actually, to your kind of specific question there, I know both Apple and Google in recent times added little kind of notifications, not an exposure notification, but sort of a little informative notification, more or less to say, we're still working away in the background, rest assured. They've taken different approaches on it. So that's the reality of the app. Once it's installed, the service is running, just does its thing. And it's only when you have that situation that you may have got an exposure notification that you have to, or you should engage with it. I'm one of those sorts of nerds who I have a little reminder set every morning. Check in my check in on the app, then flick over to the stats, check the stats, because that's we all love the stats. But you don't have to. You don't have to do any of that.
No, and I suppose the message really is that no news is good news. If it's not telling you that you've been exposed, then you can just go about your business. It's extraordinary. I think I was very enthusiastic about it at the start, about checking in and that as well, as you say. But I've almost forgotten about it now at this stage. There was a lot of... We've discussed it on the show here as well previously. I had Dara O'Brien from Castlebridge on, and we were talking just about the time that it was launched. And it really is, and I must say it's a tribute to yourselves and to the HSE as well. No project is perfect, but this in particular, the transparency and the data protection, I suppose, openness that has been built in right from the start, I think is particularly good. There's no data centrally stored or anything like that could identify anybody. And the source code is public.
Yeah, that actually, we've been talking a lot and talking to other jurisdictions who are thinking about doing apps, and really how the HSE and the Department of Health and everyone involved in that, the government, how they went about it in terms of building trust is, everyone should just look at that and say that's the absolute, exemplar for how you should launch an app like this. And it's not just the open source piece; it is that transparency, data protection, impact assessment, all of that, everything up on GitHub. So if you're in any way concerned, you can actually inform yourself that actually, this is something I can trust. And I think that word trust is so central to all of this, particularly with people just, everyone's on edge, everyone's nervous. And I think they did a fantastic job. And that app wasn't just Nearform and the HSE. As I said, the Department of Health involved. There was a bunch of other companies involved, ESRI, the Gardaí, the army doing testing and so on. So just building layer upon layer of trust with everyone ahead of time. So you're not fighting a sort of a rear guard battle or anything like that. It just worked. And I think that's why, to date, it's still, I believe, the most successful, initial launch of an exposure notification app globally. The one in Finland's been doing incredibly well as well. As of about 2 weeks ago, they had 2 million people that signed up for theirs. So, and they took a similar approach in terms of that kind of trust-based approach.
And arising out of that, Conor, I mean, you developed the COVID Tracker app for the HSE. You have found other health authorities are interested in what you've done and in the experience you've gained from that. It's the app, or a version of the app, is available in other jurisdictions and for other health authorities as well, isn't it?
Yeah, so and a lot of this again was the HSE realised just not just how powerful and valuable it was for us in the Republic of Ireland, but how it might be elsewhere. So they started working with Northern Ireland. We've obviously had Scotland, Gibraltar, and that's in a kind of a European context. Jersey, the Isle of Jersey, just announced as well. They're all separate apps, but they're all based on the same approach and it's the same kind of core people building all of these apps, and kind of taking the learning from each one as you build the next one and refining as you go along, and then feeding back into the earlier ones. Then what actually happened after that, the app was open source from the start, and that was really, for Irish people to, for us to have a sense of confidence in our own state's app, that it was safe and it was trustworthy. But then when we went to look at the US, you had a lot of activity happening over there, and the Linux Foundation, who, the kind of the guys behind Linux from an open source perspective, they set up this public health group within the kind of the wider Linux Foundation organization, focused on these apps. And the HSE actually donated the source code of the app that we had built to the Linux Foundation, and that became a thing called COVID Green. So that's one of two apps total globally that the Linux Foundation basically support with our help. And then US states then go and have started working on apps using COVID Green and working with us and so on. So we've had 2 states go live in the past couple of days, which is phenomenal. We had Delaware went first and Pennsylvania went yesterday, which is just kind of mind-blowing. This 150 odd person company headquartered in Tremor is building the app for Pennsylvania, and we have several more coming in the next 2 weeks, which are like even more mind-blowing, put it like that. And this is all like, if you'd said to somebody in March that the HSE would be, a world leader in open source public health applications, I think everybody would have gone, seriously? But it's absolutely amazing to see what's happened in that time, and the positive, for all the bad things that are happening in the world right now, what an amazingly positive outcome for everybody here.
It's uncharted territory, and it's been interesting just to see the way open source software development, the way proper data protection principles and things like that have been employed right from the start, and how they have an actual very positive application and effect when it comes to this particular area, Conor. But you mentioned 150 people working for Nearform. Who are you guys? Based in Tremor. But I suspect working from home, as I can see in your case anyway, and
yes,
as indeed I am here as well. I've thrown up a virtual background here behind me, but
I like it.
It's who is Nearform, Conor?
Nearform is a very interesting company. I've probably been aware of them since they started. It began, tiny little company, usual story, couple of founders down in Tremor. And it started very focused on a specific piece of technology called node.js. And node.js, for anybody who's interested in that kind of thing, it's JavaScript running in the back end, like on a server rather than in your browser. They realized this is a very, very powerful new way of quickly building web apps. And they got a lot of traction very, very quickly. And I think it was just so good at, enabling to deliver quickly. So I think the first big project would have been the Sunday Business Post's kind of new website, but we're going back quite a while now, sort of 2012 maybe. And from that, the guys kind of leveraged up and just started building all these web apps for all these large organizations. So did a lot of work for the likes of Condé Nast, EY, all these kind of generally, not always, but generally big companies around the world who needed, web apps, for want of a better description. But we always had these sort of 2 threads running in parallel. You had the professional services business, which is the vast majority of the company. That's what they do day to day, just, knocking out really, really good web apps for people. And then the open source activities, and this isn't sort of consuming open source, this is actually building it, investing lots of money in creating new open source projects, new open source tools. The Node project itself, we were the biggest contributors to it for a very long time, and that's us up there with sort of like IBM and Microsoft. And Nearform from Tremor, as I call it, the Silicon Valley of South Waterford. But the kind of unusual bit of all of that was the company was remote from the start. So you have Cian and a couple of the guys in Tremor, but the vast majority of the company are just scattered all over. So it's not like, people often think, oh, so you're a kind of an offshore outsource, but it's not that at all. It's live wherever you want, do the work. We all come together in remote teams to deliver whatever needs to be delivered, and then go and do the next project. And then when the HSE work came along, it was like everything came together. Remote team, tick. Experts in delivering fast apps, tick again. Has done a bunch of stuff in Bluetooth, tick again. Experts in open source, that'll do as well. So it was just one of those and I jokingly say sort of overnight success after 10 years of kind of hard work. By
It takes years to build an overnight success, Conor, as anyone who's been an overnight success will testify. We're into September now, Conor, and as you say, Nearform and several other companies indeed have been fortunate in that they were well placed to continue to operate and operate very effectively with remote working and things like that. All of our lives were curtailed in the last 6 months. It was all very scary and exciting at the start, and people launched all kinds of lockdown projects for themselves and things like that. And now, I'm not saying that there's fatigue setting in, but we're starting to realise, it's beginning to dawn on all of us, I think, that there is no end in sight. And I know you're into running and athletics, Conor, as well, but it strikes me the perfect analogy is this is a marathon, not a sprint, and we don't even know how many marathons. It could be an ultra marathon or something. How are you coping yourself, you and your family, and that, and how do you see us and society and our friends and neighbours adapting and coping and managing what is definitely looking like being the long haul?
Actually, it's a really good question, and I was personally, I suppose, lucky in terms of, I was mostly a remote worker. Like I was obviously in Tramore very regularly, but most of the time I was kind of based exactly where I'm sitting here. I had a good setup, and similar to yourself, I'm kind of, we'll call it semi-rural. I'm sort of on the edge of Bandon in West Cork, and generally speaking, sort of a good lifestyle. But even though I suppose pragmatically, COVID and lockdown and all that didn't have an enormous effect, day to day on activities like everybody else, obviously it has huge effect on you, kind of emotionally and psychologically and so on. But I think for us around here, everybody just seemed to get into a rhythm relatively quickly. And I know exactly what you're saying about fatigue, but I think I took possibly a pessimistic view that, I'm one of those people who said, it's never going back to normal. Like this is the new normal, and there's massive adjustments going to have to be needed. And that's not, long term. It's not. I know so many people think, how much longer do we have to wait for everything to go back to normal? And I think I resigned myself to the fact I don't know if it ever is. So, what do we have to do as sort of individuals and families and so on to be able to deal with that. So, as someone who enjoys running, who's terrible at it but enjoys it, it's been horrendous not being able to do races, because I might come last, but I still enjoy the thrill of it. So, I mean, a good example of that, there was a lot of people doing virtual races, for example, and in fact, we're doing our annual Nearform. So, actually, it's a good kind of a full-on example. For the past several years, once a year, everybody in Nearform came together in one place, so we could all meet each other. It was, we're a remote company, but some people had been working with each other for years and had never met face to face. So, going back nearly 4 years now. We started doing this once a year thing. We go to France, we go to Spain, everybody come together. And part of that was I do a little 5K, and so on. That should have happened this week. And obviously didn't, that meetup, but we're still doing the 5K. It's just, it's a virtual 5K, and it's a 5K for charity, and it doesn't have to be a run. You can do whatever you want. But actually, there's other types of races people have been doing. There was the great virtual run across Tennessee that my wife did. So you had to do 1,000 kilometers across Tennessee from the 1st of May to the 31st of August. And what you realize is that gives you a routine. So it actually gives you a target and something to strive for and reach for, rather than the never ending. And you talk about marathons. I've done marathons, I've done ultra marathons. Like the idea at the start of a 50 miler of running 50 miles would just drive you nuts, because so you don't think of it like that. You think of it, when's the first aid station?
Yeah.
5 miles. I can do 5 miles.
Yeah.
and I think that's how we're going to have to we're going to have to apply that mindset to this.
Try and imagine the waypoints. Try and imagine the waypoints. Like there's, let's get to Halloween, let's get to Christmas, and let's see what we can do in the meantime. It's I suppose it's. We can just push on, I think, is the main thing, Conor, and it's I know we found a similar thing at Black Knight in that everyone has been working at home for a very long time indeed, but we've actually just reopened our office and we had planned refurbishment while we were at it, so I'm going to actually include this at the end of our video podcast today, a little walkthrough of the brand new, very empty Black Knight offices. People are back since that was shot. People are back in the office and people are working. We have social distancing, we have safety protocols in place and things like that as well. But a lot of people are finding that it helps to work from home and to continue to do so. Some people, on the other hand, were delighted to get back to the office, Conor. So it's just interesting to see what people...
I think the age of your kids is a big factor.
I think so. How old are yours?
Yeah. Youngest is 13, so we're fine. It's grand.
Listen, Conor, it's been great talking to you, and as I said, I want to say congratulations to you guys on your success. I think it's a reflection of solid engineering principles put to work in software development and that as well, and things like, as I said, the DPIA and all that kind of stuff as well. Very impressive, I think, approach to the problem by the HSE as well, and it's great to see that it's going on and helping other countries and other places as well. It is catching exposures, Conor, is it? Just as I said, I know I'm coming back to this again. Yeah. I'm just like, it's my phone says I'm fine. I haven't been exposed. Yeah. I've been limiting my contact. It is catching some exposures, isn't it?
Oh, it's doing it. It's in the hundreds. It's in an Irish context. It's actually in the hundreds. And the point that Colm, who manages all of these apps in Nearform, makes is each one of those, like each time this happens, you're breaking a transmission chain, and that forget everything else. I mean, forget the fact that you're going to be saving lives as well, but then, which is critical. But those transmission chains, it's so impactful what you can do there. And I thought, what you said at the start was really important, that it is, it's a tool that's part of a system. I mean, I'm sure you saw some of the interviews with the contact tracing people recently. There's been some, Guardian did a fantastic article on Irish contact tracers. So like, what they do is, we feed in, and that app feeds into a much bigger activity that's going on out there. But it is incredible to think that a little piece of software using a piece of technology for which it wasn't designed and isn't perfect, but I repeat myself a lot with this, and I'm going to repeat myself again because I do think it's important. Dr. Mike Ryan, WHO, perfection is the enemy of the good. If this breaks one transmission chain, if this saves one life, isn't it?
No one thing, as I said, there's no silver bullet. Wearing a mask isn't going to protect you 100%, but in conjunction with a lot of other measures that people take, limiting their contacts, using the app, etc. Conor, listen, it's great to talk to you. We've gone on and on, but it's always interesting to talk to you. I want to wish you and everyone in Nearform all the best. And from my work remote office in County Clare to yours in West Cork, thanks for joining us today.
Thanks a million, Colin.
That's Conor O'Neill. He's Chief Product Officer with Nearform. They are the company that developed the app, the COVID Tracker app for the HSE, and it's gone on to have an extended life in open source terms and that as well. That's it. We'll finish up with just this video, which we shot very recently. It's a time lapse of the construction of Black Knight's new office. We're hugely proud of it, and we just can't help ourselves. Anyone that comes in, we said, you want the tour? Anyone that we talk to online, we say, hey, look what we did. So we're very pleased about it, and we're excited. I'm looking forward at some stage to getting back to the office and seeing my old work friends and colleagues as well. Anyway, good evening, until next week. Slán go fóill.